Alright, so Euphoria Season 3, Episode 1. There's this scene which, like a lot of scenes in this series, has left a bad taste in people's mouths. I'm realizing maybe there was a better way to put that, but it's brought about a lot of conversation concerning this show's, well, frankly, fetishistic nature. Ever since this show started airing in 2019, there's been discourse on topics of exploitation and shock value, so this is certainly nothing new, but it just kind of seems to be getting worse, and at this point, there's something so blatantly wrong here, it's almost laughable that Levinson is writing it off as some kind of serious portrayal of drug trafficking. Chloe Cherry, who plays Faye, spoke about Levinson wanting the scene to be as gross as possible. Quote, he was like, I really need to see in the scene that it is absolutely disgusting to swallow these fentanyl balloons. Like, I need it to be just awful. I need people to just see that it's so disgusting and hard and horrible to do this. Yeah, so just so we're clear, this scene involves two characters forcing bags of fentanyl covered in KY jelly down their throats in order to highlight the realities of body packing. Regardless of set intent, this scene and the ensuing sequence are textbook examples of fetishism in film. We can start with the simple fact that people were, well, affected in some way by this moment, by the extremity of its content, sure, but also perhaps by the way in which the content was presented, the look of it. A sign that something in film is fetishistic in nature pertains to its presentation as a spectacle, as something that breaks through the diegesis of the film text to reach out to the viewer, phrasing the narrative for the sake of fulfilling some kind of pleasure that exists outside the fantasy world contained to the screen. Think of the weird amount of feet in Tarantino movies, Woody Allen's obsession with young girls being attracted to his self-insert philosophical old man character, or the strange number of emotionally distant blonde women with hidden sensuality past their exteriors pictured in Hitchcock films. These are all visual or character-based elements which, regardless of their potential aims to subvert or critique, are at the same time fabricating an image of a woman to be gazed at, fantasized about, and controlled. Of course, this is complicated. There's a whole realm of freak movies out there that present some compelling ideas. You know, I like David Cronenberg's stuff, and while I believe the male gaze can be purposely employed by filmmakers to introduce retroactive criticisms about its own nature, take The Substance for example, that commentary is often overshadowed by the gaze of the audience. To this day, I still see edits of Margaret Qualley dancing in that one scene to the Pump It Up song. It's the same thing as those film bros who entirely miss the point of American Psycho and Fight Club. But those examples I talked about previously with the feet and the age gaps and the hair color were all cases where a fetish, whether consciously or not, was applied to a woman or girl for some kind of personal fulfillment. And they don't necessarily have to be there for the film narrative to function. Not to mention, the audience is also unconsensually engaging with said fetishes as well, which is why it feels so icky to watch something that's clearly gratifying a desire for someone else. In Euphoria's case, there appears to be this obsession with degradation, humiliation, and loss of bodily control, evidenced by the drooling, farting, and liquid poop. One could argue that these images are displayed in order to comment on this whole idea of losing control of yourself for drugs or money, etc. Fine, sure, but why film it like that? With close-ups and overhead shots on Rue and Faye sticking their fingers in their mouths, forcing these bags down their throats, drooling and gagging and choking. Once again, there's still a fantasy image being constructed here, which continues to perpetuate the same gaze it's trying to critique. And as for why it's filmed that way, when it comes to visual fetishes, they're often fixed on a part of something called a fetish object, a material thing or a part of the body which is not inherently sexual but elicits sexual desire. Think leather, ropes, or particular pieces of clothing, which are not always but commonly assigned to the exterior of a woman's body so as to counteract her mysterious and anxiety-inducing interior. Women's body parts are also broken up into pieces and objectified so as to dismiss their whole person. In the instance of Euphoria, there seems to be this fixation with orifices and blocking them off or filling them with something, that something acting as a kind of substitute for a sexual act, which subsequently leads to this loss of bodily autonomy. When it comes down to it, this is a fetish which perpetuates a male fantasy of sexual violence, a voyeuristic pleasure in seeing women suffer, lazily disguised as something groundbreaking, uncensored, or different. It's not any of those things. Men have taken pleasure in aestheticizing women's pain for centuries instead of confronting their own issues. And women have continuously been ignored as they're left to deal with the aftermath. By confronting this, I want to express that it is that serious. This shouldn't be written off as some stylistic choice. It should be understood as a long-established system of codes contributing to the oppression of women's real feelings and experiences.
I came to realize that these fetishistic images of women were not relegated to a perverse underworld, but were pervasive in mass media, circulating images that were not of women, but of what woman had come to represent for collective male fantasy, fear and desire intertwined.